In the next step, we want to apply a wood flooring to the floor plates. So let's go back to our perspective view, right-click, perspective. I'm going back to my perspective view so I don't accidentally change the camera position itself. And so let's select this bottom floor, and I want to give this bottom floor a wood material. So let's also make a new material. So come here to a new slot, and we're going to make a new standard material. So click there, and we'll bring up a standard material. Okay, and in that standard material we want to give that a diffuse color that looks like wood floorboards. So we'll select a bitmap for our diffuse map and say OK, and I will navigate to find my wood texture. So it's this one here. Say OK, and now I have to apply this material to the floor. So I have my wood material selected, and now I can click this Assign Material to Selection. The next step, if you remember, is to click Show Standard Map in Viewport. Now you can see that we're starting to have a wood texture being applied to our object. So in order to change the scale of this wood texture, let's go ahead and put a UVW map on it. So again, modifiers, UVW map. Okay, and I also want to use a box mapping style, and let's see. It appears that the texture came in way too big again. So we can start to scale this texture. So you can manipulate the length and width to get it a desirable width. And now maybe I want to make the concrete run in the opposite. Maybe if I want to make the wood run in the opposite direction, you simply come up to where it says UVW map, select your gizmo, and make sure your angle snaps are turned on, and I want to use the rotate tool, and I can rotate about the blue axis right now. Okay, and I can just rotate it 90 degrees just like that. Now if we do a quick rendering, we can test out how our new wood material looks. Okay, so we now have a wood material applied to the floor. Now let's work on the glass material a little bit. This is going to get into manipulating some of our more basic shaders or basic materials. So let's make a new material, and let's go ahead. If you already have a glass material, let's use the select your glass plane. Right click on your glass plane and go down to where it says Select Similar, and it will select all the materials with all the objects with the same material. Okay, so now we have all those objects selected. Let's make our new glass material. So let's make a new standard material. So click here, standard, and let's give it a bit of a bluish color. Okay, so grayish blue color is maybe how I like it. And now we want to add some transparency to this object, but we want to be able to see that transparency. So first click here where it says background. We want to show a checkered background behind our object. So now that it's 100% opaque, you cannot see through to the checkers. So if we modify here the opacity, say to, I don't know, 20%, it becomes very transparent. Now let's see, it's 60%. So semi-opaque. I'm going to just set it at 50% for now, and we'll test it out. Now, maybe one other thing you'd like to do is give it a bit of a reflection. So we want to do this as we come down here to where it says Maps, and we click there, and it will bring up the list of maps that we can place on a given material. And there are lots of different things that we can do with this, but we want to place a reflection map on this. So we want to click to the left of it to make it available. So it's applying a map. And where we click here where it says None, and we want to put a ray trace map on it. And we say OK. Now we want to go back up to the parent directory to adjust the amount of reflection. So click up to go to parent, and here it gives us 100% reflection, so it's a completely reflective surface. We don't want that. For glass, we want to stay between 5 and 9%, so I'm going to just put it at 8% right now, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so just a slight reflection, and you can see that here. So now let's go ahead and maybe we can add a little bit of specular level and glossiness. So here where it says specular highlights, let's watch our material again. Oops, wrong one. We want to take that material and we want to give it a bit of glossiness and a bit of specular level. Okay, so you can see that when you play with this, you get a different sort of curve. And it'll give you different reflection or different surface characteristics. Now I want to do another test rendering. Oh, sorry. Now that we have all of our objects should still be selected, and with our new material we'll rename it glass. Okay, and we want to take our glass material and apply it to those objects. Now let's do a test rendering. Okay, it looks pretty good, but we may want to go back and manipulate the color of the glass a little bit. Maybe it should be a little bit more blue. And maybe we'll give it a little bit more of a reflection. And we'll render this. Okay. Maybe now we just want to turn down the transparency a little bit more, so maybe 30% transparency. That's starting to look good. Now we may want to play around with our default gray material a little bit more. So let's select our default gray material, and perhaps we want to make it a brighter color, so we can make it closer to white. And now we can probably play around with the specular levels and see what the results are. Let's go back to our camera view and see how it looks. The view is getting much better, but maybe we want to go one step further and add a site material. Okay, so now we have an earth material and 2 more materials. If we're looking at the render results here, it looks like the scene could stand to be a bit brighter. So now that we have the materials applied, we can go back, start to brighten up the scene a little bit more. So let's take our Omni lights and maybe increase the multiplier to 0.4. We'll do a test render to see the results. We're getting pretty close to the desired result. If we like the settings for both the camera positioning and the lighting, the next step is to go back to our rendering output settings and render out the final size image. So let's do that. Go to rendering, render setup, and make sure that your aspect ratio was locked so that we can preserve the screen ratio. And let's go ahead and set the longest length. In this case it's the width. Let's change that to 1500 pixels. Okay, and before we render, let's maybe change the background if you want. So if you go to rendering and then go to environment, you can map a color or an image. Let's just make it a color, and I can pick sort of a bluish color and give it a nice light blue tint. Okay, and let's render our scene. Okay, now we can see that we have a final quality rendering. It's a large size image. So let's save this guy out. So in your render frame, go to save, and we're going to save that image. And I'd like to save our image as a TIFF. Okay, and click save. Now when you save it as a TIFF, it's going to give you this menu. I want to store the alpha channel so that I can remove the background in Photoshop if I choose, and I can save the dots per inch to 150 with no compression. Okay?